This is the 2021 Ford Edge SEL, and it's powered by a 2-liter turbocharged engine. Steve here, Cars with Steve, and before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to Yorkdale Ford for giving me access to this vehicle to shoot the video for you today. Check down in the description below in order to find their contact details. Now, the 21 Edge did get an upgrade, specifically on the inside. There are some exterior highlights as well. The Edge badge is moved more in line with the Escape, but it's got a great look to it. But let's dive into it, have a little bit of fun, and see what the 21 Edge SEL has to offer. Starting off, looking at some exterior styling of the vehicle. So the tire itself inside of the SEL lineup is going to be an 18-inch tire. We've got an aluminum rim to it as well, and the tires themselves, the rubber is typically going to be a Michelin rubber that you're going to find inside of it. So great performance when it comes down to it. As we start to move forward, we've got our LED headlamps, LED fog lamps, and then we've got black moldings along the front of the vehicle as well, stretching across the entire side of the body, really contrasting nicely with the vehicle. Fenders pop out just a tiny little bit, not flaring too much, which is nice. Overall, aesthetically, looks incredible. Taking a peek underneath the hood of the vehicle. So the Edge SEL only has a 2-liter turbocharged engine available as an option. From a power perspective though, this thing is going to be able to push out 250 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque, so plenty powerful when it comes down to it. Looking at some basics, we've got easy access if we need to top up our fluids, we can easily check our oil, and then we've also got easy access to our battery if we ever need to give anybody a boost. Now, filling up fuel inside of the vehicle is a very straightforward process, and it's just along our driver's side doors. You can see we've got a little cutout there. We're just going to push and open up. Now, it is a capless system, so just insert your fuel hose, fill up, and you're good to go. Now, when it comes into the fuel quality, this is a 2-liter turbocharged engine. Minimum manufacturer's recommendation is just your regular 87 octane, so regular gas. Do you need to use a higher quality fuel? Absolutely not. But here's the caveat to that. When you look at the horsepower and torque specs, so that 250 horse, 280 pound-feet of torque, that's achieved using a premium fuel. So do you need to use it? No, but you'll absolutely notice a difference in the actual performance of the vehicle and fuel economy when you use a slightly higher performance fuel instead. Taking a peek at towing, so we can get the tow package directly from the factory. Now, whether you decide to go aftermarket or from the factory is going to be a matter of preference. If you're doing a bike rack carrier, you could save a couple bucks by doing an aftermarket. But having said that, when we get it from the factory, it just aesthetically looks nicer. Now, towing capacity wise, from the factory, you're going to be able to pull up to 3,500 pounds. And we also do get the trailer sway control. So the trailer sway control, that's one nice thing that you won't be able to get aftermarket. So what that's going to do is it's automatically going to apply braking to the engine if it senses that the trailer is swaying. So it helps get that sway under control. Looking at some exterior styling, so as you can see there, we've got our Edge badge, which is more in line with the look of the Escape that we got for the 2020 model year, so they did give this thing a little bit of an upgrade on the outside there. We've got our LED tail lamps in the back there as well. Taking a peek at some standard technology, we're always going to have our backup camera. We've got our reverse sensing system, so that beeping that we get as we get closer back to obstacles. And then we've also got our blind spot system as part of the Ford Copilot 360 package, and that's going to let us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. And on top of that, we also do have a lane keeping system, so it'll gently nudge us back into our lane. Taking a peek at the key fob of the vehicle, so we've got our Ford logo along the back. Looking at the actual fob itself, we've got our unlock and our lock button, remote start, trunk release, as well as our horn or a panic alarm button. Now on top of that, this does have that emergency access key as well, so if we ever need to get access to the vehicle, or if we need to lock a glove box, things like that, this is where we're going to go. Now in order to remote start the vehicle, we can use the Ford Pass app on our cell phone, so whether we've got an Android or an iPhone device, but on the actual fob, if we press the lock button once and circle button twice, that's actually going to remote start the vehicle. And then in order to be able to cancel the remote start, we're just going to press that circle button against just once. And getting inside of the trunk of the vehicle, as you can see there, we can just double press this button in order to be able to get inside of the vehicle. But on the outside, we also do have a little button on the back there as well. So we can push that button, power liftgate. Let's have a peek inside. All right, so taking a peek at the cargo dimensions. So as you can see there, we've got plenty of width and space when it comes down to it. Now it is a 60-40 split, so 60% driver, 40% passenger, so we can fold down one side or the other if we need to create a little bit more space inside of the vehicle. Now when we fold the actual seats down, take a peek at the difference in the cargo dimensions. So as you can see there, we've got a lot more depth. Then as I mentioned, it's 60-40 split, so we can fold down one side or the other if we want to create a little bit of extra space inside of the vehicle. Now, as we start to move inside, so off to the right side there, as you can see, we've got a little storage cubby, a little storage space along the top as well. Now, we do have the option for a cargo cover, so a little cover along the top there if we want to cover off whatever we've got in the back. That's an aftermarket solution. And then we also do have a 12-volt power point along our left-hand side, as well as a power down for our seats. So we can press either the left or the right-hand side, and we can fold down one side if we want to. So simple button press, and as you can see, the seat is now folded down. So one thing to note, it is power release, but we manually have to lift the seat back up again, and that's going to be the same across the entire vehicle lineup. Now, as we start to move back, so this is going to be the regular carpet liner that's going to be included inside of the vehicle. Taking a peek underneath, so as you can see there, we do have our mini spare tire. So really, really nice. So now one thing to note, this is an 18-inch tire, so it's technically the regular sizes are 18-inch, but it's a temporary tire. Along the left side, we've got a little spigot, and then we've also got a little storage space along both the sides there as well if we need to store some extra things. This is hilarious. I haven't needed one of these since I was a kid. I'm gonna wet the seat. Spacing wise, I've got the driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall. I'm 6 feet tall. I've got plenty of room for my knees and a nice amount of foot room as well. Now up overhead, I've got about 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches of head space. So if you're a little bit taller, you can definitely get inside of this vehicle. Now, one of the nice things is that we can also recline the seat. So there's a little lever along the left-hand side. We can crank that in order to move the seat backwards a little bit. When I do that, up overhead, like I've got like 4 inches of head space. So if you've got some taller passengers, they could probably sit in the back here. You might just need to recline the seat a little bit more in order for them to be able to comfortably fit inside of this seat. Now, a couple other things to point out. We do have a cup holder in the back here as well. So very, very straightforward there. Click that in order to lock it back into place. And as we start to move forward, so we've got a little cubby space, so a little bit of storage space for the back there. We've also got a few USB ports, so our USB as well as our USB-C. And then there's also a traditional wall outlet, so that 150 watt, I should say, as well. All right, now taking a peek along the driver's side door. So we do have a 5-digit number we can enter in order to be able to get inside. We've got intelligent access, so we can unlock or lock the vehicle there very simply. Crank it in order to open it up. Taking a peek along the driver's side door. So we've got our unlock and our lock buttons, our side view mirror control, window buttons. Moving down, we've got a little storage space along the driver's side door. Just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, we've got a few different buttons as well. So we've got our fog lamp button. We can figure out what's going on with our running lamps, increase or decrease the brightness on the cluster screen. We can open the trunk, or we can also turn our traction control on or off from the inside as well. Adjusting the driver's seat inside of the SEL trim level is going to be a power driver and partial power passenger seat. So driver's seat, very straightforward. We've got a series of different toggles and levers along the side. First one is going to bring the seat forwards, backwards, up and down. We've also got one for a backrest. We can go backwards or forwards with it. And then we've also got one for our lumbar support. So we've got a little bit of extra stability for our lower back. Now adjusting the steering wheel, I should say, is going to be a manual process inside of the vehicle as well. So just between our legs there, we've got a little lever. We're just going to crank that one down, and it's telescopic. So we can go in and out, up and down. Once you've got that perfect position, crank it in order to lock it back into place. Ooh, all right. Now, hopping inside of the vehicle. So firstly, we've got a great steering wheel here, buttons along the top. We've got buttons galore. So going along the top buttons there, that's going to adjust what's going on with a little instrument cluster screen on the left-hand side, while the one on the right is going to adjust what's going on the right-hand side. Now, that left instrument cluster screen is going to give you things like our driver assistance settings, our lane keeping modes and things like that, while the one on the right is going to be for entertainment, navigation, phone, etc. Now, depending on which package of the vehicle you've got inside of yours. So this is the SEL version of the vehicle, but it's got a couple extra packages. So we've got the adaptive cruise control system. If yours didn't have that system, it would just be regular cruise control instead. But the adaptive cruise control is that set and forget it cruise. So you set it at, let's say, 100 kilometers an hour on the highway, car in front of you slows down, yours is going to brake. If they get out of the way or pick up speed, yours is going to do the exact same thing. So great system there. We can change between songs or radio stations, increase, decrease volume. We've got our voice command prompt and then our mute button as well. Along the left-hand side, we've got a little button right along the end of the stick there, and that's going to give us the ability to turn that lane keeping system on or off. The right-hand side, that right stick, is going to adjust what's going on with our wipers, so very straightforward there. Now, as we look at the actual center stack, so the vehicle itself is push button start. So just push button in order to be able to turn the car on and off. We've got Ford's brand new Sync 4 media screen. So one of the nice things about this screen, it's huge, it looks absolutely stunning, but we went from wired Android Auto Apple CarPlay to now wireless. So you can connect your Android Auto Apple CarPlay, you can use Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Waze directly through this middle screen without having to physically be connected anymore, which is incredible. And then depending on which packages you have inside of your vehicle, this thing also does have the option for a wireless charging pad. So if your phone supports wireless charging, you could be wirelessly charging while you're connected wirelessly through Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So it's a really, really cool feature. Now, the screen itself, tons of different options there, and even looking at the buttons and the instrument cluster and things like that, there's a lot of information to cover off. So I've actually put together a comprehensive walk-around video that goes through this Sync 4 media screen, as well as all the buttons on the actual steering wheel itself. Drop down into the description below in order to get that video, because it is fairly in-depth and it goes over everything you need to know about this cluster screen. But looking on the inside there, so very straightforward. We've got some basics for our sound, radio, phone list. We've got some general settings and a number of other things. Pulling up along the top, one of the neat things is we've got some interesting options now for the 2021 model year. So we've got our owner's manual, firstly, that is actually digital. So it's going to be included there in the Sync 4 screen. So we're not going to get a printed manual anymore when you buy the vehicle. So that's one thing that sets people off, because it's like, where's my manual? You bought this car, you think it's going to get a manual. No, not anymore. It's now included inside of the vehicle. You can also download it online at Ford's website. So one thing to take into account there. We do have a note section that we can use inside of this thing as well. Now, one thing that is also new for the 2021 model year are climate control settings. So it used to be a series of buttons just along the bottom of the old screen, but now it's included in the bottom of this screen. So very straightforward there. We do have dual zone climate control inside of the SEL version of the vehicle, which is nice. We do have our heated seats as well as a heated steering wheel. So lots of flexibility when it comes down to it. Clicking on some of these other buttons, we can figure out what's going on with our airflow, and visually it just looks infinitely better than just the older buttons. Will you kind of miss the old buttons initially? Yes, but I like to equate that to looking at old school old school phones as well. Like old school Blackberries, the button touches when you went to an iPhone. You probably got driven mad because you couldn't text and drive anymore. But with this one, it's actually interesting because, I mean, yeah, the buttons are gone. They're not tactile buttons anymore, but we can easily press and adjust directly through that screen as well. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's not impossible at the end of the day. Moving down, we've got a volume rocker as well. Not bad, and that's the base sound system. So base sound system, when you look at the titanium or the ST trim level, you will have the upgraded Bang & Olufsen, but still sounds nice. We've got a tuning rocker moving down, but honestly, we've got a voice command prompt on our steering wheel. So what I'd recommend is just using that button in order to make phone calls, change radio stations, things like that. And you've also got a Ford Assistant. So smart from that perspective. There's lots of different things that you can connect and talk to this car about. Well, how was your day, car? That'd be actually kind of interesting, my psychologist on the road. As we start to move down, we do have a wireless charging pad inside of this vehicle as well because of one of the added packages. We've got a few USB ports, so our USB is as well as our USB-C. Moving down a bit more, we've got a little rotary dial now for our gear shifter. So we don't have an actual physical gear shifter anymore. That went away a couple of years ago, but we've got our park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then into our sport mode. Now, one thing to know with the sport mode, that's actually going to hold the gears a little bit longer as we're driving, but we don't have paddle shifters the same way that we would find inside of the titanium or the ST trim level. But moving down, we do have our electronic parking brake, and then we've got a hot button press in order to turn our auto start stop system. So the one that's maybe going to kill power to the engine, we can turn that thing on or off if we want to. Moving down a little bit more, we've got a little storage tray, we've got a few cup holders, and a little phone holder as well. Now that's one of the nice things, because if your phone supports wireless charging, that's cool, you can drop it inside. We can also pop it along the side there. We can also pop it along the back. So we've got a lot of flexibility when it comes down to where does this phone go and where are we storing some things. So very forward thinking on Ford's part. We've got a little storage tray in the middle there on our armrest. We can pop this thing out, and we've got a 12-volt port there inside of that as well. Click that in order to lock it back into place. Now, as we start to move up overhead, we do have an auto-dimming rear view mirror inside of the SEL trim level. We've also got our basics for our interior lighting. Now, this specific one does have that panoramic sunroof, so absolutely beautiful look when it comes down to it. We've got our basic for our shade control, and then we can either vent this thing out or we can open and close it. Now, the roof itself doesn't open the entire way. It gets about halfway there, but still it looks absolutely stunning when you've got this thing open. Now, one other thing to point out as we start to move off to the side, we do have our home link. So if you've got a garage door opener at home, you can easily program that one in. We also do have a vanity mirror in there as well. So vanity mirror with our lights. We can crank this thing out, and then we can also extend it out slightly if we need to block a teeny little bit of sun. Click it in order to lock it back into place. All right, now time for the fun part. Let's take this thing out for a spin and see how it actually handles on the road. Super excited about that one. So this is the SEL trim level of the vehicle, which means that it's got a 2-liter turbocharged engine. So 250 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque, tons of power when it comes down to it. All right, let's see. So I am very curious how this one is going to handle in comparison. Well, at the end of the day, like, I've been inside of Edges before. It's the same 2-liter turbocharged engine we can find in a number of Ford vehicles. It's in the Escape, it's in the Nautilus, it's in the Corsair. Like, it is in a boatload of Ford and Lincoln vehicles. So this thing, plenty of power, lots of reliability when it comes down to it. Nice and comfortable at the end of the day. This is the SEL trim level of the vehicle. So a couple things about the SEL trim. We've got, so this specific one has the ActiveX seating material. So it's that the stuff that looks like leather, feels like leather, not quite leather, but it is absolutely comfortable. You've got a couple different options when it comes down to the styling of the inside of the vehicle as well. Because at the end of the day, the inside styling, we could go with this ebony interior. There's a lighter sandstone interior instead, but the overall comfort across the lineup is there. So whether we look at the cloth seats of the SE, all the way up to the ST and the titanium trim levels, the big differences are, like inside of the SEL, we've got those heated seats as part of that cold weather package there. But it's just comfortable overall. I do love the fact that we've got this beautiful media screen though. This like Sync 4 media screen, the Android Auto, Apple CarPlay wireless are a very nice touch inside of this thing. So hats off to Ford. My hats off to Ford. Oh, that's great. So hats off to Ford for doing that, because the feature itself is incredible at the end of the day. Like, I love this new Sync 4 media screen and what they've done with it. So one thing to note, this one does have the convenience package. So that convenience package is going to give us a few things. A wireless charging pad is going to be one of those things. So now that's a really nice thing, because if you've got a phone that supports wireless charging, you can be wirelessly charging your phone while you're also wirelessly connected to Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Now that's one thing that changed in the 2020 to the 2021 model year. So in the 2020, it was wired Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and now it's wireless. So it's a really, really cool feature. I mean, if you never use CarPlay, it's going to be relevant for you, but we do have factory navigation. But if you prefer to use Google Maps, Apple Maps, Waze, things like that, we can use all of those map applications directly through this larger middle screen. Gotta get out of the way of the intersection here so I'm not blocking. Oh, it's one of the nice things. This thing's super nimble at the end of the day. It's nice though, nice and comfortable. Office Space kind of situation there. Yeah, if you've ever seen the movie Office Space, like that situation there is exactly what just happened in Office Space. Like the beginning of the movie, you get the main character and like his character's trying to get to work and he's frustrated because the lane that he's in, it comes to a dead stop. And then all of a sudden the lane next to him starts to move. So he just like haphazardly flips lanes. And the second he changes lanes, traffic in his lane stops and traffic in the other lane picks back up to speed again. And that literally is exactly what happened here. So traffic wasn't moving for me in my lane. I cut over. The second I did, traffic opened back up again. It's funny. Oh well. Okay, now overall, so like I have a tendency to always drive with my left hand. So driving with my right, because we're in automatic, my left arm, like I can comfortably get along the driver's door there, so I can kind of keep it planted as I go, which is nice. If I switch out to the other side, so it's on my right side instead, like it's super comfortable off to the right side there as well. So overall nice. I've got my blind spot system on there as well. So blind spot system lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. And we're on a 2-liter turbocharged engine, so that's not bad. That's not bad at all. So a couple things about the actual, it's actually pretty good. So the reason why 250 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque. One thing to note, this is a turbocharged engine. So when you put your foot down in a turbocharged engine, takes a second for the turbo to spool, gives you that power to go. So, I mean, I had that spooling happen there for a brief second, but you know, I'm good to go now. So, oh no, traffic is terrible. All right, oh man. All right, well, I'm gonna hug back a little bit, but let's gun it and see what happens. Okay. So it can pick you up to highway speed pretty nicely. Unfortunately, let's flip over to the other camera for a second. As you can see, the highway is literally a write-off right now. So I'm not going to be able to do too much driving, unfortunately, to kind of show you what's really going on. But to kind of give you an idea, like I said, like with that last little kind of gunning that I did there, it does at least have a good amount of power when it comes down to it. And this is just the regular 2-liter turbo engine. Like if you're looking for something a little bit more powerful, you can look at the 2-liter turbo twin. You can look at the 2.7-liter twin turbo engine instead. That's going to push out even more power. So it's going to definitely kick it up a notch, and you absolutely will notice a difference. Now I do have the lane centering, lane keeping system on right now as well. So lane keeping gently nudges me back into my lane. Okay, perfect. So that's one of the nice things about that system. So I've got it set it up so that I got a little bit of a steering wheel shake, and then it also nudged me back into my lane as well. So like headspace is good. The engine start stop has still not kicked in. So it, again, like I wasn't stopped too many times, but it's literally up to the car when it decides to put it into that start stop mode. It just, right now, it just decides not to do it. So I've got the AC going though, and it's going pretty loud. So that's probably, and it's on low, most likely why it's not kicking on. So I'm not going to complain, because I know some people that start-stop feature drives them nuts. We can temporarily disable it as well. And I say temporarily because when you turn the engine off and you turn it back on again, you do have to re-engage and turn that auto start-stop system back off again if it drives you nuts. But you got that flexibility if you really want to turn it on or off as necessary. Well, folks, that was an in-depth look at the 2021 Ford Edge SEL. What did you think? If you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe. And until I see you next time, make sure you stay safe.